Welcome back everyone to For Strategy Gaming. Today we will be taking a look at a Protoss strategy. In this particular replay, the player we're looking at is MYM's Sace, and the opponent here is ESC's Goody. Let's go into Sace Vision here, and what are we going to be taking a look at today? Well, in terms of the build itself, we'll be actually taking a look at a 3-gate expansion. This is actually a very popular, very prevalent build. As a Protoss player against a Terran opponent, it'll provide you with a solid army early game, allowing you to defend yourself, have some decent aggression, but at the same time you'll be able to get up a relatively quick expansion, going with the first 1, 2, and 3 gateways, and then dropping the Nexus right after that point. Also in this game, we'll be taking a look at 2 other things: defending, delaying, and protecting yourself against a helion drop, something that Terran players could very likely do. A 3 helion drop with, of course, a medevac can be very devastating as a Protoss player. And so we're going to take a look at how specifically Sace deals with it and protects himself against what could be devastating losses. And then we'll also be taking a look at catching your opponent by surprise and how that can lead to just a straight outright victory. Now, in terms of the build order, as mentioned prior, this is going to be just a 3-gate expand build. So we'll take a look at how that build order looks, and let's slow it on down right now as we take a look at that. So the opening is going to be with a 9 Pylon, 13 Gateway, 14 Assimilator, and 18 Cybernetics Core. Now, right after the Cybernetics Core at 18 supply, also dropping a second Assimilator, 21 supply when that Cyber Core finishes, start up that Warp Gate research, and then at 28 supply, there will be 2 additional gateways dropped, and then right after those 2 gateways are dropped, as soon as you have 400 extra minerals, we'll be dropping the Nexus, and that also was taking place at 28 supply for Sace. So yes, the 3-gate expand, opening up with these 3 gateways. Why was there a second gas gotten very early? The second gas was taken right after the Cybernetics Core came out. The reason you're getting it so early, even though you're fast expanding, is because you also go sentry heavy with this. Opening up with a fast expansion can of course be very dangerous against strong pushes. And what will protect you and kind of help tilt the scales in your favor is having a lot of early game sentries. The force fields kind of being that great equalizer, and that will certainly help you out quite a bit. So you can see, starting out with the Stalker here, then building a second sentry. There's a third sentry coming on the way. We can see, of course, both the simulators here are saturated, and there is the Nexus right now. So this is the general opening, that 3-gate expansion build. As I mentioned, a pretty popular tactic, can certainly be very effective. It's going to allow, as I mentioned, for a good defense and also the possibility of some early aggression. Now, as we can see right now, Sace pushing up with his Stalker, spotting that bunker and seeing these 2 helions. That's a pretty good indication of things to come. I mean, basically, the only reason to really get the bunker is to defend yourself against strong early Protoss pressure because you're teching up some way. So in seeing that, he's got a fairly good idea that there may very well be a drop and or Banshees coming from Goody. So certainly something to be worried about. And unfortunately there, as we can see, Sace did get his army taken out. So right now, not sitting with a lot back at home, but the sentry will help buy him time with just enough energy for 1 force field. Second force field will be coming soon. Also going Stalker heavy, as he did see lots of Marines and Hellions, and the Stalker, of course, is strong against both those things. So as mentioned, seeing the bunker at the front, seeing all those Marines and Hellions, he's expecting either the Helion drop or quite possibly some early game Banshees. So having the anti-air and having units that are properly able to deal with Hellions is exactly what he's getting warped in. Now, as we can see, the expansion just about finished, and well, finished now and getting saturated. Also, that Robotics is going to get dropped up. Once you have that Nexus up, go ahead and drop a Robotics. You, of course, want an observer right away, trying to scout out your opponent. That's the whole goal here. Now, this is an important part in the game. We can see Sace is across the map and in front of Goody's base. He's looking again to try to push out and do some aggression. Even though he's just sitting with 3 gateways, he didn't go for a 4-gate or anything of the sort. It is still enough production units to push out and be aggressive. Now, what's going to happen is while Sace is out here, the Helion drop is actually en route. We can take a look right there, and there it is. So let's go right back into Sace Vision. Take a look at how he deals with this. We've got the Helions. Let me pause momentarily. We have got the Helions dropped at the natural. Obviously, the probes are in danger there. A couple Zealots, but those won't help too much against the Helions. And the bulk of his army is across the map. So, obviously, if this army was here in the natural or in the main, he could quite easily deal with this. But what we're going to see Sace do is, in order to delay this Helion drop from doing too much damage, we can see right now he's dropping Pylons at the front of his ramp. And this is really fantastic fantastic. You can see those helions wanted to run up here, but now they will be forced to go back to the medevac, and even though that's not a lot of time, it buys him just enough time to get another warp in of stalkers and be able to defend himself. And then of course you can see you don't want those pylons to finish, canceling them off, but they were warped in just for that temporary wall off to buy himself time to warp in these stalkers to kill off those helions. So very nice. Also retreating back with the bulk of his force. Now whenever you defend against an attack, be it a small aggression, maybe he opened up with some banshees, maybe he did a helion drop like we saw here, it's always a great idea to push out and test the waters and do something resembling a counterattack. So what we're actually going to see happen right here is Sace is preparing for the late game. He's got the robotics bay coming into play, but at the same time he is pushing out, and this is another crucial moment in the game. We saw how he defended and protected himself against that helion drop, delaying it, buying himself time to warp in the stalkers, but this is where he actually wins the game, and this is something that I would really like you guys in the community to be able to try to do and take advantage of. Using your observer scout to spot what your opponent is doing. What we're going to see here is Goody actually doesn't realize, he knows the pylon's there, but he doesn't know that Sace has his army sitting out, and with the observer scout, Sace sees exactly what is going on. So we're going to pick it back up, pushing play here, and what we can see is the second that these Marines, now the forces are moving out because Goody of course needs to expand. He wants to move his unit down to be able to defend his expansion. The second that with this observer scout, say Season moves out, he pushes forward, drops the force fields, and look at that, that is a lot of Marines and that Hellion in there as well. He cut out almost half of Goody's army without much retaliation from the units up on the high ground. And that was just a completely devastating loss. That plus the fact that the Hellion damage didn't, the Hellion attack, the Hellion drop didn't do too much damage. Goody was basically just completely out of the game at this point. Not only doing no damage with that Hellion drop, and again that delay with the pylons that we saw, but also losing half of his army to that force field. And realized the reason this was so successful is because obviously Sace realized, hey, I've got an expansion up. Clearly Goody's going to need to drop his expansion sometime soon, so he spotted it with the observer. The second that he saw those Marines and tanks pushing out, he moved forward, dropped those force fields, and cut the army in half. And that's definitely a really solid tactic. Obviously, another reason this was so effective is just because Sace was in that position. As I mentioned, the second that he defended that aggression, he moved out to test the waters to see if he could do some damage. If, say, he was outnumbered or he realized he wasn't going to be able to drop the force field in time and take that army out, you could very well just retreat, drop some force fields to protect your army, but at least push out after you defend aggression and try to do something. So let me go over the build order. Again, the build that was used in this particular game is a basic 3-gate expansion build, then moving into a robo to get that initial observer, and then dropping that robotics bay to work into mid to late game Colossus. The opening build was 9 Pylon, 13 Gateway, 14 Assimilator, 18 was the Cybernetics Core, also right after the Cybernetics Core, dropping the second Assimilator at 18, 21 starting that Warp Gate research right when that Cybernetics Core finishes, 28 were those 2 additional gateways, sitting at 3 gateways, opening up with the Stalker, then moving into Sentry Heavy, then at 28 supply, as soon as he had those extra 400 resources, dropping that Nexus, and then a 30 supply once the Nexus is up, dropping that Robotics, getting that first Observer out. We saw the defense against those Hellions, and we saw some very nice, taking great advantage of a perfect opportunity by cutting the army in half with those force fields. So nice game here for Sace. Hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two from this strategy replay. As always, guys, if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Keep watching and keep owning.